So, meanwhile, today, of course, marks the opening of Phase 1 for EPF's account to support facility, allowing applications for account to savings to be used to pay for personal financing loans. I spoke to Suraya Zainuddin, author and financial activist who blogs at Ringgit O Ringgit, tying together Malaysian financial literacy, critical gaps, and what this means for EPF account 2 withdrawals. Let's watch. Suraya, thanks for making time for us. Let's get started off with Malaysia's financial literacy rates. Now, according to the 2020 OECD International Survey of Adult Financial Literacy, our rate stands roughly at about 59%. How does this actually impact Malaysians' financial behavior, Suraya?
Thank you for having me. Now, the OECD International Survey of Adult Financial Literacy, that's a really interesting survey and data points to just go through. If you look at it, the average score for all the countries that they surveyed is just under 61%. So Malaysia being at 59.7, we're a little bit below average, but not that bad in comparison with other countries. So it's considered okay, but of course, lots of room for improvement. The survey, they measure three main things, which is financial knowledge, financial behavior, and financial attitude. And specifically on your question, how does that impact our financial behavior? You got to go deep down into the results of the survey. Now, interestingly, although Malaysia maybe score low in financial knowledge, we actually score pretty high in financial behavior. In fact, we have the result of the survey says that we have the third highest behavior score. So that's quite interesting. But our gaps are we are low in financial knowledge and we are low in financial attitude. So what this all means is that Malaysians already know the basic principles of like saving money, making good comparison, budgeting. We know that, but we lack knowledge in terms of financial concepts. We lack concepts. We lack information like what is inflation, what is simple interest, what is compound interest, what is inflation, what is risk diversification. So that's where more of our efforts need to go towards.
Right. That is so interesting, Suraya, and thanks so much for, setting the landscape, because from there, I want to quickly go into, of course, EPF, our retirement savings numbers. And as of March, we show that we've got basically about 4.81 million members between 40 to 54 years of age. Now, from this cohort, 2 million have less than 10,000 ringgit in savings. 2.64 million are inactive, meaning which they haven't actually contributed any savings in the past couple of years. And even more interestingly, 59% of this cohort, which is 2.85 million individuals, of course, withdrew according to the COVID-19 leeways, which were made during particularly the height of the pandemic, and they have removed 62 billion ringgit in total from their EPF accounts. Now, what are these numbers indicating to you about financial planning gaps for Malaysia's upcoming generation of retirees?
I mean, these gaps have been highlighted time and time again. I'll just kind of summarize. This really have just laid back, like all of the systemic issues Malaysians have been facing for decades now. We have low financial literacy. It's improving, but still a little bit low. We lack savings because of low wages and high cost of living. And according to EPF, we need about between 240,000 to 600,000 to retire comfortably, depending on where you live in Malaysia. And if one is in their 20s, 30s right now, and you plan to retire in 20, 30 years, you will need to have a nest fund of about 900,000 to 1 million ringgit. So you can see that we need a lot more than 10,000 ringgit to retire. Unfortunately, various bodies have highlighted the long-term implications of insufficient retirement funds. So I'll just share some of the major ones, like maybe three of them.
Sure.
One of them is, of course, the extra burden that this will put in the social welfare system. And because one of the biggest expenses in old age is healthcare, this will significantly strain the public health system. So you can expect in years to come, longer waiting times, even for essential surgeries. That will be the norm, especially when the insurance penetration rate is still very, very low in Malaysia. 70% of Malaysians have protection products, the last statistic that I saw. Secondly, is the burden placed on adult children. So when adult children, out of love, we are expected to financially care for our parents, and that's all fine and good. But these are, extra expenses on top of saving for our own retirement and on top of paying for all of other life expenses. So this just means less savings, and less savings means this will delay someone's planning. This will delay someone's marriage plan, delay someone's family planning plan. And we already know that Malaysia is already facing a declining birth rate trend. This will just compound on that issue. And the third and the last point that I want to make is that now we're already seeing this, but we are already normalizing working in old age. With insufficient retirement fund, there is simply no other choice. And if someone is still fortunate enough to be healthy, they will opt to continue working because there's no other choice. But we can see a very interesting shift is happening. Traditionally, grandparents usually serve as sort of like the de facto childcare providers for their grandchildren. But without the support, now dual income household, they have to allocate childcare as part of their essential family expenses. So you can see how the financial burden is more placed on people who are just making out in their life stages.
Absolutely. Some great points over there. Now, I think it's absolutely topical that today, of course, EPF Account 2 support facility to apply for personal financing loans from banking institution opens for members above 40. Your thoughts about the maximum financing amount of 50,000 ringgit, as well as repayment tenure of up to 10 years max, but also the fact that you can actually make these online requests through participating institutions, meaning which you wouldn't have to go face to face even.
Yes, this was such an interesting decision because if you look at all the online conversations, no one is happy about it. So from what I can see, right, the people who want EPF withdrawal, they're not happy because they want unrestricted access to their funds. They don't want a loan. They want access to their funds, and even from their funds from account one, not account two, because that's already been depleted, right? And then the people who have been warning against EPF withdrawals, they're not happy either, because no matter how creative the solution is, like a loan is still a loan, so it solves some problems, but not all. So really funny to see all the conversations happening because you can see that this decision, everyone hates it, or at best they're neutral about it. I'm quite neutral about it. And the best that I can say is that it's the lesser of two evils, right? We can see that it is true that a loan with 4 to 5% interest rate is better than a personal loan, much higher interest rate, or worse if people go to loan sharks, much worse consequences. So, and I can also see that there are enough deterrents in place to ensure only people who are desperate for funds or only people who have enough funds in their account to will be able to take advantage of this EPF account to support facility. But again, it's an interesting decision by the government, which benefits some people, but I doubt that the conversations about EPF withdrawal will stop at this point.
Absolutely. And in conclusion, Soraya, what would be your first recommendation for Malaysians who want to actually see their EPF grow and, of course, offer an avenue for secure retirement?
Sure. The first step for any financial planning process is always look at the cash flow. Look at the money coming in versus money going out. That's the first essential thing. So from there, you can dissect which expenses you have been overpaying or maybe even unnecessarily paying, and then trying to figure out strategies to sustainably contribute to your retirement and see if there's anything extra that can go towards that. So what's important to highlight here is that while it is true that low income and high cost of living is one reason for insufficient retirement funds, you would be surprised by how many high income earners also live beyond their means and also end up with insufficient retirement funds. So it's really just crucial to just look at the cash flow data. People really don't like the blanket answer of like just earn more, just save more. We really have to look at the data. And another one more step further than that is to look at your commitments. It's really no secret that Malaysians have one of the highest household debt in the region. And personally, I think it's a missed opportunity that EPF did not promote services offered by AKPK or other members of the Financial Education Network. They could remind everyone that debt restructuring services may be available, And many people have put in their comments that they want to take out EPF money in order to pay off their debt. So, like, if they could just promote the services are available, pointing out to AKTK services a little bit more than perhaps what they're doing now, it might help people a little bit more.
Nicely tied in, Soraya, because once again goes back to those OECD findings about financial knowledge as well as aptitude beat low. Thank you so much for making the time to join us.
Thank you for having me.